Hello, explorers, and welcome to Reach the World's Explorer program. For more than 25 years, Reach the World has sparked student curiosity, bringing real-world adventure, fresh perspectives, and fascinating career paths into K-12 classrooms through virtual exchange. My name is Tim, and today we are rejoining Explorer Mark Evans and his Oman 3165 expedition to hear what he's been up to since we last connected. It's been a little while since we've had Mark live on Reach the World. It's going to be very nice to have him back. As you'll remember, Mark is a seasoned explorer who has lived in the Middle East for 25 years, during which time he's undertaken some remarkable adventures, including this attempt to kayak the entire 3,165-kilometer coastline of Oman. Today, we'll connect live with Mark again to see how it's all been going. For any newcomers to this virtual exchange program, please be sure to check out the links in the chat on the right-hand side of your screen. They'll take you to Reach the World's homepage for our Exploring Oman by Kayak program, where you can find all Mark's articles to date, as well as recordings from live events, including this one, which you'll be able to find there as soon as we're finished today. I have to give a few special classroom shout-outs today for some of our participating classrooms, especially Miss Stubbs at Eastside Elementary in Mississippi. Glad you're here. Miss Ponsard's class waiting backstage to ask their questions from Meyer Middle School in Ohio, and Mr. Strayer's class at Whittier Middle School in Oklahoma. So glad you're all here. And of course, a warm welcome to all of the Reach the World K-12 classrooms around the world who are here live or will be watching the recording after the fact today. We are so excited. I'm as excited as you are to get rolling. Let's just do it. I'm very pleased to welcome Explorer Mark Evans back to Reach the World. Hello, Mark.
Hi, Tim. How are you?
I am doing great. It's nice to see you.
Well, yeah, you too. I'm probably looking a bit cleaner than the last time we spoke, actually.
You were looking cleaner and better lit. Our last time we spoke to you, you were sort of a voice in a dark evening, and it's nice to see your face. How are things?
Yeah, great, Tim. Actually, really, really good. The fact that you can see my face, I know you speak to lots of intelligent young geographers and scientists on your sessions, but so something's different. And what's different is that I'm now in Scotland. As of 36 hours ago, I landed in London yesterday, and then I got a connecting flight to the north of Scotland to a place called Inverness. And then from Inverness, it was a 1-hour drive to my little cottage here in the Highlands of Scotland. And what that doesn't mean is that we've finished the journey in Oman, because there's been so much going on that I can tell you all about today, really. But so we've pressed the pause button on the journey for multiple reasons, and some of those I'm going to explain to you today. But yeah, there's been a lot going on since I spoke to you last.
I was gonna say, you don't look like it's evening in Oman right now. You look to be somewhere different, and I want to learn all about that, and we want to talk about that today. But I thought maybe, it's been, I was looking back, it's been a solid 2 months since the last time we saw you. I know a lot can happen in that time, not least of which is the holidays and the resuming of your expedition. So maybe you can walk us through a couple of these pictures we have ready, and it'll bring us up to speed.
Sure, yeah, Tim. So we've been on the water a lot, as much as the weather will allow us. Normally, the sea conditions in Oman are just like you see in that picture, which is why we start at sunrise. So the picture on the right there that you can see is me setting off at sunrise. The water's pretty calm. There are a series of Arabian fishing boats called dhows, which are anchored just offshore there in the slightly deeper water. And so every day for about 50 days on the water, I've been getting up at 4:30 a.m. We've been on the water at 6:30 a.m. And I paddle till about midday. So I'm doing about 25 to 35 kilometers every day. And on the left, you can see the blue line. So on my kayak, I have a device that transmits a signal via satellite every 30 minutes. But if I fall in, which is the worst thing that could possibly happen, and I get separated from my boat, knowing where my boat is isn't going to save my life. It'll help you find my boat, but not me. So my boat transmits a signal every 30 minutes, but on my life jacket, that of course everyone should wear when they go onto water in a kayak, I have a device called a Garmin inReach, and that pings a location every 10 minutes. So if I'm in the water, I'm not going to fall in when the water's nice like this. I'm more likely to fall in when the sea's really rough. And when the sea's really rough, it could be that I fall in. I have to get out of my boat. Obviously, I'll be wriggling around underwater, getting my legs out. By the time I come up, I could have been separated from my boat. And so at least if we have two signals, we can find me and find the boat, hopefully in that order, if the rescue team are doing their job properly. But you can see the blue dashes. The last time we spoke, I was up near the capital city, Muscat. But we've come a long way round the corner now, the most easterly point of Oman and the entire Arabic-speaking world. The most easterly point is there, Ras Al-Had. And then we've come all the way down the coast to the point where the yellow dot is, which is an industrial community called Duqm. So Oman is pretty big, but it's only got 5 million people, so very uninhabited. And Duqm is the nearest other sizable communities, 3 or 4 hours away from Duqm. It's a very important place for Oman because of its location on the coast of the Indian Ocean. So it's a great place for big boats to go in and get refueled, unload, load, have all the barnacles scraped off their bottoms, and which is what happens if you spend too long in the sea. You get barnacles on your bottom. So we've now reached Duqm about a week ago, and that's where we've got to, Tim.
All right. That is some significant progress. That is, I mean, that blue line is maybe only 2 inches on my screen, but represents many miles of hard-fought kayaking. I know that the geography has changed a little bit as you've come down the coastline. The next pictures, we've got a couple pictures, I think from beaches that you have visited recently. Maybe you can tell us what we're looking at here.
Whoa, yeah. Well, we're in part of Oman that I call the Skeleton Coast, but geographically, the Skeleton Coast is actually in Namibia in Africa. But I call this place the Skeleton Coast because it's full of shipwrecks. Because what you're seeing here is an old ship's boiler that's been rusting away. I've been going to this beach for 20 years. It's a beautiful place to go because it's well off the tourist trail. Oman has lots of tourists coming here in the winter months when it's cooler in particular, but not many people will come to this place. It's really rugged. You can see the mountains in the background. It's quite remote, but because for me, rugged and remote means really interesting. And when I camp here, it's just beautiful. There are incredible birds around and very few human beings. So the wildlife's really tame. You see lots of wildlife, and it's just a great location. But this is an area of shipwrecks. There are shipwrecks everywhere. They could be oil tankers whose engines failed and they drifted on the big seas. Because the seas aren't always like they are in the winter that I've been paddling. In the summer, the monsoon starts and the sea then gets really rough. The local fishermen who go out in the winter every day with their small boat fishing, they can't go onto the sea for about 3 months in the summer because the sea is too wild. So it's no wonder that sometimes with all the boats in Oman, thanks to, this is a traditional old dhow that got washed up about 3 or 4 years ago. And when I went on board and crawled around, it was full of bags of cement bound for Somalia. But goodness knows what happened to it. All I've noticed over the last few years when I've been going is that every time I go, someone's taken some other part of the boat for their own boat, I think. And so this is a dhow. And this one's washed up on that same bit of coastline. And the big boats, I mean, the huge metal oil tankers, when they get run aground, they will try and tow them off. But if they can't do that because it's too dangerous, then they'll send in people with big torch cutters and they'll try and break it up into sections to remove it from the coastline, and at least you can get some money for the scrap metal. So it's been great for me to be able to camp in such beautiful places as this, and the coastline without doubt is getting much more dramatic, much more rugged, much emptier, but as I said before, rugged and empty makes for a really great adventure.
The next picture we have, I have this as a placeholder, but it signifies a video. I want to show a video because even though the people, perhaps the human population is getting less, doesn't mean that there's nothing living there. And this video is very exciting. Maybe I'll just sort of bring it up and play it, and you can tell us what we're looking at.
Sure, you're looking at one of 3 species of fox in Oman. So we have the Ruppel sand fox, which has got enormous ears, and they live in the desert and like in the heart of the sand desert. And like any animal that lives in extreme heat, it's adapted its hunting to come out at night, which is why it has super large ears, twice the size of the fox you're looking at here. So the Ruppel sand fox we tend to see only when we're in the really sandy areas. There is another fox that has been kind of chased away by this fella that you're looking at here. So what you're looking at here is a European red fox. It's the kind of fox we'd have now. They prowl the streets of London. If you walk around London at 2 o'clock in the morning, you'll have foxes going into dustbins and hanging out in people's gardens. They're everywhere. They're a really smart, successful animal. They were introduced in Oman by the sailors, no doubt, many years ago, and they've really thrived. And so pretty much every night when we put out the camera trap, we empty a tin of tuna, and that's what the fox is eating here. And we try and bury it under a stick, so the fox has sometimes got to dig a little bit. It's got to hang out in front of the camera a bit longer so that we can get a good look at it, rather than taking the tuna and going. So this is a European red fox, and we have those every night, Tim. But what remains of the journey is going to be much more wealthier in terms of biodiversity, because we're entering the part of Arabia that is kissed by the monsoon every summer. So it's vivid green for 3 months of the year. It's Africa in Arabia, and the wildlife we're going to see when we restart the journey is going to be quite amazing. We're going to have hyenas, we're going to have wolves, we might have leopards on the camera trap, and all these animals are less than 100 meters from where we're sleeping on the ground.
That's very exciting to know they're out there, and then to see the evidence of it the next morning. Here's another look at one of your camps. This looks so beautiful. What a beautiful place to hang out.
Yeah, Timmy, our camps are really simple. So those people, I know you might have some schools who are joining for the first time, but those who've been following for a while will know that I have a vehicle following me, and that vehicle is a kind of logistics base camp hub. So I'm out on the water on my own for 6 hours in the day, but I have something else in my life jacket, which is a waterproof walkie-talkie. Here it is, like this one here. It floats in the water, but it only has a range of about 5 kilometers. Whereas this serious walkie-talkie here is a proper marine one. This has a range of tens of kilometers. But the one I carry in Oman is this one. It's much smaller, it's much lighter. So that means when I'm coming into land, which is the most dangerous point of the day, I'm in comms with the vehicle team who are on the beach. They've chosen a safe place for me to try and land the kayak where I'm not going to damage it. Because what happens when you turn that corner of the coastline, Tim, is that you're exposed to this enormous ocean called the Indian Ocean. And the swell coming in means that you have these huge breaking waves dumping on the beach. And I have to land through that stuff. And it's very entertaining for the people on the beach with the cameras in their hands. But for me, being offshore, watching these huge waves rise up like a horse getting onto its back legs and then crashing down, it's quite intimidating. And anyway, that's the most exciting part of my day. But once I've landed, the idea is I'm usually soaking wet by this stage because of these big waves. And so the vehicle team help me out of the water. They take the scientific equipment off the boat before it gets damaged by the waves. And then I've got to get out of my clothes, because my clothes, if they dry wet, they'll just turn white, solid white with the salt, because the water's really salty. So I've got to wash really quickly, wash my clothes, hang them to dry, which is really easy in Oman because the sun is so strong. And then we get in the vehicle and we travel a little bit inland to find a beautiful campsite to spend the night and the afternoon, because remember, we're off the water by sort of 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock in the afternoon. So the previous image showed you a typical kind of campsite, really. Everything's stored in the vehicle. We don't have tents. We just have 2 chairs. We don't even have a table. We have a little metal box that's full of the science equipment. And we have a few little lights. We'll hang them up in the trees to make it really homely. And we get out so we cook on a gas stove. And being British, I have to have a cup of tea first thing when I've reached terra firma, and that's us. Then we'll sort of analyze the day. I might have some footage on my Insta360 camera or on my GoPro, and we need to download all that and just get all that organized, because if you don't do it every day, it becomes a huge backlog of work that you have to do. So it looks very peaceful here, and it is very peaceful, but there's a lot of work goes on in the afternoon and early evening. And then we're probably getting into our sleeping bag about 8 o'clock at night, because remember, the alarm goes off at 4:30 a.m. every morning.
Sounds like some very full days. I would like to pause here because we have Miss Ponsart's class waiting backstage, and I know they have some questions that they would like to ask you. So I want to give them a chance to do that at this point, and we can return to the story, but I want to make sure they get a chance to ask. So hello, Miss Ponsart's class.
Hello. Hi.
Hi. You are on camera with Mark, so I'll let you have at it.
What's the craziest thing you've seen while kayaking?
Oh, well, apart from you, I'd say the craziest I would say the craziest thing I've seen whilst I've been kayaking is just amazing turtles swimming underneath my kayak. I was in water that was so shallow. I don't know how they did it, because sometimes the blade of my paddle that I'm paddling was touching the sand at the bottom, and yet these huge turtles that are almost a meter across, they're able to swim underneath my kayak. And just there's no better feeling than sharing the ocean with a beautiful animal like that, and especially when there are 2 or 3 of them. And because my kayak makes no noise, there's no pollution, I can get really close to some amazing wildlife.
Okay, go ahead.
What's your favorite animal to see in the water?
Oh, that's a great question. Well, do you know my favorite one? That's a really good question. My favorite one is still being a bit elusive, which means it's just playing kind of hide and seek a little bit, because I saw it. There are less than 100 of these animals left in the ocean in Oman. And I saw one about 15 years ago. I haven't seen one since, but it's called a humpback whale. And there's a particular humpback whale which is called the Arabian humpback whale. They're isolated from all the other humpbacks in the world. You have humpbacks up the coast of USA, but the ones in Oman, they don't move anywhere because the hot and cold water come to them. And I'm really hoping that I can see one. I've only ever seen one in my life, but when you're in a kayak and you're only 100 meters from something that's about 20 times bigger than you are, I tell you, your heart really starts beating. And but they're beautiful animals. And the last one I saw, it just came up out of the water like a giant submarine. And I don't know if you watch the movies, when the submarines come to the surface, the water drains down the side, and it seems like forever. And that's the way it was when I saw this beautiful humpback whale. So I'm in the main area for the whales right now, which is where we stopped last week. So for the next 3 weeks of my journey, if I don't see one, well, there's a message for the scientists there. I think that the humpback whales are getting more scarce, and we need to be better at protecting them. Or maybe I'm going to be lucky and I see the animal that I'd love to see.
Great question. As we're getting the next student up, I'm just envisioning, being swimming or in a small boat on the ocean and seeing something the size of an American school bus just like emerge from the water next to you. It seems, I can feel the adrenaline of that.
Yeah.
All right, next question.
How long did it take you to complete the whole journey?
Well, that's a really good question. So it's taken me, in terms of days on the water, I think I've been paddling for about 50 days. And on a good day, I've been able to get about 35 kilometers in a day, but usually it's about 25. And it's like running a marathon. I don't know if you know anybody who runs a marathon. But running a marathon, most people run a marathon and then they don't do anything for about 2 weeks afterwards. They're recovering, and they probably say, I'm never going to run a marathon ever again in my life because it was too painful. but I have to do that every single day for 50 days. And so I try and hold back a little bit and not go as far as I could, because I need to have energy to get up and go again the next day. So 50 days steady progress, but we're probably about 60% of the way along the journey. So I think I've got another 30 to 40 days left to go.
Okay.
Have you ever felt like you wanted to quit kayaking?
Oh, you know, that's a really good question, and the answer, of course, is yes. You know, we all have good days, but we all have bad days too. And sometimes you don't know why you're having a bad day. It just could be a combination of things. But for me, I would say the hardest day on this trip, you know, it didn't make me want to quit the whole journey, of course, but it made me want to quit that day. Was, you know, at this time of year, one of the reasons I chose this time of year is because in the Middle East, the wind blows from the north all winter, which means it's blowing me I'm traveling south. So it's helping me on the way. But for about 2 or 3 days, the winds changed direction completely. And I had a really strong wind blowing in my face. And when you're paddling as hard as you can, so I've got one of these smartwatches like you have probably, and it tells me how far I'm paddling and what the speed that I'm going. And you could walk across that classroom faster than I was paddling for about 4 hours, and I was trying as hard as I could, but every 2 steps forward I was being blown 2 steps back. But I couldn't stop because I couldn't land anywhere because the cliffs were so big, so I had to keep going until there was a beach that I could land on. So yeah, of course, there are days when it's tough, and I guess you have days like that at school too. We all have days like that, in which case you just try and ease off a little bit, relax, and just say, you know, today it's not going to work. I'm just going to come off the water as soon as I can. I'm going to sleep and save my energy because tomorrow will be a better day.
We're gonna need another minute to get a question together.
Yeah, no problem. You know, while the next question asker is coming up, I'll bring you back in just a second, Ms. Ponsart. Mark, this may be a good spot for us to stop and talk a little bit about what helped you decide to hit pause at the journey at this point. You know, there's a difference between giving up and making a strategic decision to pause and reframe. And maybe you can talk a little bit about why you decided to do that at this point.
Yeah, sure, Tim. Do you have that picture of the parachute and the?
I do, yes. Let's bring it up here. There we go.
Yeah. So this was a great adventure that I did a few years ago with a good friend of mine. So this photograph is taken in the middle of Greenland, and in the middle of the Greenland ice cap. And what we're doing here is that we're pulling a sled. In the sled weighs twice as much as we do. So each of us, there were 2 of us, each of us weighs 75 kg, and the sled is about 140 kg. And on our feet here, we've got skis. And if the wind's blowing in the right direction, you can use these parachutes to pull you across. And this was probably about day 14 of our journey. It took us 25 days to cross Greenland from coast to coast. And you start at 0 altitude at sea level. You go up to 10,000 feet, and then it's like a billiard table, a pool table, really flat all the way across, and then it descends to the west coast. But it was really, really hard. And in our diaries, my friend and I, we were just saying privately, we'd write our diary at night in the tent. We were saying, you know what, it's so hard. I'm not sure I can keep going, but I don't want to let each other down. We were both writing the same thing. So luckily for us, we woke up one morning and the wind was finally in the right direction. So we were able to get these really heavy parachutes that we'd carried for days and not been able to use because there was either no wind or there was too much wind, but in the wrong direction. So we got the parachute up, and these parachutes in one day, we did about 120 kilometers. just bouncing along, being pulled by these parachutes, which is really painful on your legs, really painful on your back, because that parachute is clipped into a big harness that you're wearing around your shoulders and your waist. So it's really tough. And the next day, the wind dropped a little bit. We sailed again. I think we did about another 60 kilometers. So we did about 200 kilometers in 2 days. It was amazing. And so we're camped in the middle of the Greenland ice cap, no other human being for hundreds and hundreds of miles. And we had a satellite phone. And the satellite phone was really for emergency, for people to call us if there was some desperate news, or for us to call for help if we needed rescue. And our phone was ringing, and it was someone in the UK who'd been tracking us on our website. And they said, do you know what? If you keep going, you're going to break the record for the fastest ever crossing of the Greenland ice cap. And we spoke about that night, and we said, do we want to keep going? Should we try and get the fastest record for crossing Greenland? And in the end, it didn't take us long to decide no. That was of no interest to us. That wasn't why we were doing the journey. And we'd been planning for the journey for 2 years, to be in this most incredible environment. Why on earth are we rushing to finish? Because as soon as you finish, within a couple of days, you're on a plane, you're back home where you started, wishing you were back in Greenland. So do you know what we did? We put up our tent and we just didn't move for about 2 days. We slept, we had a really good rest. We read our books, we played cards, and then we continued our journey across this beautiful landscape. And we're in the same situation, Tim, with Oman now, in that we've had such a fantastic time. We've had so many requests from schools around the world that we're hopelessly behind with in trying to contact them. We're hopelessly behind in the science. We've had to say no to a few requests to do some scientific research because we've been so focused on pushing forward every day to try and get to the finish line. And it just made us think. We reached this community in Dukum. It's a real key point in our journey. And I know what lies ahead is this magical part of Arabia with the leopards and the hyenas and the frankincense trees. And it's just beautiful. And the thought, well, do we just keep our foot to the accelerator and move as fast as we can? And then, you know what? It's all over very quickly. Or do we do what we did in Greenland 10 years ago and say, do you know what? We're going to stop and we're going to catch up, reframe. You know, we've got 120 hours of audio recordings because I'm towing this underwater microphone. We haven't had time to listen to any of that underwater recording. So we're going to use the time now to catch up, plan really thoroughly so that when we go back to Oman at this time next year, it'll be January, February next year. When we go back, we're super well positioned to really get the maximum out of the incredible landscape that remains until we reach that border with Yemen.
That's such great insight into the decision-making processes of explorers. It reminds me of the saying, it's about the journey, not the destination.
Exactly. Yeah, it's how you get there. It's not where you're going to. It's how. Well, it's that to a degree, but it's how you get there. I mean, why do explorers do these things? I mean, yes, it looks hard work, but actually we do it because we love it, and it just gives us the opportunity to engage and inspire young people, which is, you know, what you're an expert at, Tim. But it's you know, there's so much more we think that we're missing that we could be doing on the journey, and pressing that pause gives us the opportunity to really maximize what remains.
All right. Well, thanks for bringing us up to speed on that. Let's bring Ms. Ponsard's class back up. For any other students who had questions ready, I'll turn it over to you.
Do you prefer to kayak by yourself or with someone else?
Oh yeah, good question. Do you know, I think on the journey so far, I've probably been on my own for 80% of the time. And whilst you're on your own, you're never alone, really, because I have my Garmin device. People can send me a message on the Garmin, so my life jacket's constantly buzzing away with messages saying, remember to take the eDNA sample, remember to turn your microphone on for the hydrophone. So you're kind of alone, but you're always connected. And there are often quite a few fishermen out on the water in little boats. And because they've never seen a kayak, they're always very curious. They come over and say, "Are you okay? Where's your engine?" I say, "Well, I haven't got an engine," And so you have a conversation, and so there are pluses and minuses to both. It's great to have a conversation with someone when you're on the water, but after 2 hours together, anyway, you're paddling in silence because it's hard work, and you got to kind of concentrate on the water around you. So both of them have advantages. I think sometimes when I'm on my own, it's easier because you don't have to wait for someone if they're slower, or if they're faster than you don't feel the need to paddle faster. And if you paddle faster than is comfortable, all that means is I'm going to be tired the next day, and I'm not going to have much energy in the tank. So sometimes I prefer to be on my own because it's simpler, but there are other times when the company's great. So it's a combination of the two, really.
Very good question. We have any other questions? Oh, yeah, right in the front. Okay, sorry. Go ahead.
How hard is it to be away from family?
How hard is it? Well, do you know what? My wife was disappointingly very enthusiastic to send me away for all these days, but she, it is hard, but it's not as hard as it was 20 years ago. Now I can have a message from whoever within seconds of them sending a message, and that could be a voice message on WhatsApp, it could be a text message on my Garmin InReach, or we can have a Zoom chat like we're having now, and you can see each other. So you compare that to 20 years ago when none of that was possible. So communication's great. I don't know what it's like in where you are, but here in Britain now, we're talking about banning these in schools. So if you're under 16, you're not allowed to take phones into schools, and social media is going to be banned. I think Australia's already done it. My own country here in Britain, they're thinking about doing it. So there are negatives to all that communication, but there are huge positives also, because it means you can keep in touch with people that you love and you want to keep in touch with, and it's very easy to have a private conversation with them. If you just wander off into the darkness, you can get on Zoom with people. So it's it's hard to go away sometimes, but you know what? It's great to come back to, like I did yesterday. So it's both sides of the story.
We have one more question.
What's the farthest you traveled in one day?
Well, in the kayak on this trip, it's I would say 38 kilometers, which was pretty tiring. But I only did that because I made a huge mistake of getting stuck in the mud. I got the tides wrong, and I couldn't kayak because the water was too shallow. And then the water disappeared completely, so my kayak was stuck in the mud. So I had to break my day into two parts because I had to wait for the tide to come back and float. So I'd already done about 24 kilometers when that happened. But then I was able to hang around for 6 hours waiting for the tide to come back in. So I did another 14 kilometers that afternoon. And so that was 38 kilometers. That was my longest day.
Okay.
Right, Ms. Ponce, students, what great questions. Thank you so much for asking Mark your questions today. I'm going to move you backstage. There's one other thing, Mark, I wanted to chat with you about while we have you on screen. It just happens to be that today is the start of a very important religious period, Ramadan, in the Muslim world. And what would you, if you were in Oman today, what would you expect to see? I know you probably would not be around that many people. Maybe, foxes are not observing Ramadan, but if you were amongst your friends in Oman, what would the beginning of Ramadan look like in Oman?
Oh, well, it would have been, first of all, the last week would have been crazy because everyone, just like us building up for Christmas, everyone goes shopping mad for Ramadan, building up to Ramadan, and everyone will be at the supermarkets, will be so busy. Because Ramadan it's a month of cleanliness, of holiness, of just being a good human being, and putting yourself second and other people first. So it's a month of fasting. in daylight hours. And so what would have happened was, so in Oman, like most Arab countries, the working day is reduced by 2 hours. So people will go to work at 8, they'll finish at 2, because during that time, they're not allowed to eat or drink. So they'll often go home at 2 o'clock, and they're not allowed to eat or drink until sunset. And sunset is about 6 p.m. in the afternoon. So people will sleep for a couple of hours, but then they'll have so all the streets will be completely empty about 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock in the afternoon, because everyone's at home either sleeping, and if you're not sleeping, you'll be busy preparing your meal to break the fast. And remember, you'll be starving hungry because you've probably been at work all day, you weren't able to eat or drink. And so we call it iftar, the big meal where all the family, all the friends, the people come together. And it's beautiful. It's a really beautiful month, but it only lasts 28 days, not 30 days, because, you know, there's something that I see in Oman every evening, and it's on the top of every mosque as well. And I rarely see it here in Scotland because the weather's so grim, you can't see any stars and you can't see the moon. But what will determine whether Ramadan starts tonight or tomorrow night will be the sighting of the crescent moon, a very, very thin moon. So all the moon sighting people will be out there with their telescopes looking at the sky to see the crescent moon. As soon as they see the crescent moon, that is the official start of Ramadan and the holy month of Ramadan, which lasts for 28 days. And it's it's a really peaceful time. I'm glad I don't fast. I tried. So when I've lived in Oman for 23 years, I had 48 Omanis working for me, and I tried to fast with them, but I couldn't. I was so hungry, and I don't know how they came to work every day and did their work, because I found it really hard to concentrate. But I guess they'd been born into that life, and so they were used to it. But for me, it was really tough, and I'd have to sneak out of a room, find somewhere private where they couldn't see me eating, because it would have been very unfair on them for me to be getting stuck into my Doritos and everything in front of them whilst they're fasting.
Very interesting. For those of us who are watching around the world who have Muslim friends, how do you acknowledge that it's Ramadan? Do you say Happy Ramadan? Like, is there something that you would say to a friend who is beginning the celebration of Ramadan today?
Yeah, you'd say, well, there's a couple of things, Timothy. One, you say Ramadan Kareem, or you'd say Ramadan Mubarak.
Okay.
And either of those. Ramadan Kareem is probably more formal and more widely used.
All right. Wonderful. Well, Mark, it's so nice to catch up with you. It's nice for me, it's nice to see you like resting and, you know, like having accomplished so much on this expedition with the plan to go back and finish the second part in a very deliberate way. It's great to be caught up with you. Our class had to move on to the rest of their day, so I can't bring them back on to say goodbye and thank you, but I'll say so on their behalf. Thank you so much for joining us, for filling us in on what you've been up to over the last couple months. Of course, it's been very, very exciting and fun to follow the Oman 3165 expedition. I hope we can rejoin you next January when you get going, because I want to see all of these creatures that you're expecting to see as well. And of course, we're wishing you all the best. And to our educators, one more reminder to visit Mark's Virtual Exchange homepage. You can see the link in the chat on the right-hand side of your screen. You can always relive this journey to date with your students using Mark's articles, wonderful articles that he's written. For now, though, it's time to send everybody on their way for the week. Thank you all so much for joining. Keep exploring. Hope to see you again on a future Reach the World Explorer program live stream. And Mark, I'll say goodbye to you. Take care. Good to see you.
You too. Thanks very much, Tim. Bye-bye.